The owner of the New England Patriots, Billy Sullivan, seemed a contented man as he awaited the important AFC East matchup between his Patriots and the New York Jets. But it had been a week of turmoil for Sullivan and the Pats. Sullivan had fired head coach Ron Meyer and hired Hall of Fame receiver Raymond Berry, a former New England assistant. Berry takes over a Patriots team that has played well in 1984. At the season's halfway point, New England is fighting for a playoff spot with a 5-3 record. Berry does not inherit a floundering loser, but rather a team of talent on the threshold of contention. His main competition may well come from today's opponent, Joe Walton's surprising Jets. The Jets enter the game with a mark of 6-2, and much of the credit must go to Walton, a man under tremendous pressure a year ago when in his first season New York fell on hard times. But this year the Jets have become a closely knit unit, clawing and scratching for victories the old-fashioned way, by earning them. Today, the Jets face a team on an emotional high, a team ready to unite behind the leadership of a new coach. For men like running back Craig James, the 1984 season has begun anew. From Sullivan Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts, it's the New England Patriots hosting the New York Jets on the NFL Game of the Week. The brightest young quarterback in the AFC, other than Dan Marino, of course, is New England's Tony Eason. Incredibly, Eason, in his first season as a starter, has thrown only one interception. And against the Jets' defense vulnerable to the pass, number 11 came out throwing. But this 26-yard hookup with number 86 Stanley Morgan was the only offense of any significance in the game's opening 9 minutes. Defense prevailed, mostly in the form of quarterback sacks. Eason was victimized by Jets rookie Ron Perot, number 74, in a rare sack by somebody other than league leader Mark Gastineau. But what the Jets gave, they also received. New York quarterback Pat Ryan could not sidestep the heavy Patriots pass rush as defense set the tone in this heated battle of division rivals. Following New England's show of defensive might, Ryan and the Jets regrouped, and New York began moving the ball through the air, with Ryan throwing medium-range passes to wide receiver Lamb Jones, number 80. Jones, playing in his first game of the 1984 season following a broken collarbone, caught 2 passes on a Jets drive that ended with a 46-yard field goal by kicker Pat Leahy. The Jets led 3-0 late in the first quarter, but they quickly extended that lead, the catalyst being running back Freeman McNeil, number 24. McNeil raised 53 yards down the left sideline for the longest run from scrimmage of his 4-year pro career. Returning after a 1-week absence due to a rib injury, McNeil set up the game's first touchdown, a 7-yard strike from reserve quarterback Ken O'Brien to third-string tight end Rocky Cleaver, number 89. It was a shining moment for 2 of New York's understudies. O'Brien had replaced a dazed Ryan earlier in the period, and the touchdown was the first as a pro for the second-year quarterback, as it was for Cleaver, a free agent from Montana, also in his second NFL season. The sophomore score gave New York a 10-0 lead as the first quarter came to a close. As the second quarter began, things were not looking up for first-day head coach Raymond Berry. His defense had just allowed a touchdown. His offense had been unable to move the ball consistently against an average Jets defense. What was he to do? All he could do was watch his new team and hope that things would improve. They did, as Tony Eason began connecting with his swift pair of wide receivers, Stanley Morgan and Stephen Starring, number 81. Completions to Morgan and Starring were the key plays in a 13-play, 72-yard drive that consumed over 5 minutes. But unfortunately for New England and its rookie head coach, the final result was not a touchdown, but a 20-yard field goal by Tony Franklin that narrowed the Jets' lead to 10-3 with 10 minutes remaining in the second quarter. New England had gotten on the scoreboard, but following the long drive, the field goal seemed to be a letdown. The Jets were still in command, even with Ken O'Brien remaining at quarterback. O'Brien directed another Jets scoring drive, mixing short to medium-range passes, like this one to Freeman McNeil, with straight-ahead running, courtesy of Johnny Hector, number 34. Hector's determined efforts helped bring New York inside the Patriots' 5. But on a third down from the 2, New England stopped Hector short of the goal line, and the Jets were forced to settle for Pat Leahy's second field goal and a 13-3 lead. It didn't take long for New York to add to that. On the Patriots' second play following the field goal, rookie Russell Carter, number 27, picked off a Tony Eason pass, and the Jets had the ball in New England territory with 4 minutes left in the half. The Jets took full advantage of this opportunity when fullback Marion Barber popped to the outside to score from 2 yards out and increase New York's lead to 20-3. The Jets were pulling away from New England. This game was becoming a rout. The Patriots had 1 minute 16 seconds to at least get a field goal. They needed some points desperately. Tony Eason was up to the challenge. Four completions, the final one the result of Eason's outstanding ability to use the pocket to maneuver out of trouble, set up the field goal. With only 2 ticks left on the clock in the first half, Tony Franklin drilled his second field goal. This one a 27-yarder, as the Patriots refused to quit. They still trailed 20-6 as the half ended. But led by Eason, they had fought back. They still had a ways to go, but they let the Jets know that the second half would not be easy. As a matter of fact, for New York, it would be a nightmare. Through the first half, Jets defensive end Mark Gastineau and his pass-rushing buddies had met early and often in the pocket, with Patriot quarterback Tony Eason in their grasp. And as the third quarter began, that trend did not appreciably change. Gastineau continued to add to his league-leading sack total with yet another bagging of Eason. But while this play looked like business as usual from the first 30 minutes, it actually marked the end of Jet dominance for the rest of the day. The Patriots were about to turn the game around, and they did it on the booming foot of punter Luke Prestridge. Last week, Luke rocketed an 89-yarder against Miami. This one was but a mere 82 yards, but it backed the Jets up deep in their own territory. Here, the Patriot defense had a decided advantage, and they used it to keep New York's attack from getting out of trouble. The Jets had to play it safe, and in doing so, they ended up making little progress. Number 98 nose tackle Dennis Owens dropped Ken O'Brien, seeming to spark the Patriots even more. The Jets quickly handed the ball over to New England, and from there the Pats came alive, coming up with several amazing plays that may have surprised even themselves. Tight end Lynn Dawson somehow came up with a less than picture-perfect pass. And then little-used running back Craig James came out of mothballs to pick up more yardage. Again, the Patriots could muster only a field goal, but it was not a sign of the Jets resuming control. Quite the contrary, in fact. It was simply the first salvo of a remarkable second-half rally. And New England kept it going as assistant coach Rod Russ' defense continued to bottle up the Jets' offensive efforts at every turn. This time it was a sack from linebacker Don Blackman, number 55, that stopped the Jets. And following a poor New York punt, the Patriots took over in excellent field position. Then Eason cranked up and flipped a pass to Stanley Morgan to move the Pats even closer. Then came what many later would consider the critical play of the game. Running back Craig James, following a crushing block from number 76 Brian Holloway, soon found himself in a place in which he had never been, an NFL end zone. The 25-yard romp from James was his first touchdown since coming over from the USFL to play for the Patriots. Ironically, he had arrived in New England to play for his old college coach at SMU, Ron Meyer. But Meyer had seldom called upon the former Mustang, and now James would be getting all the work he could want from a new coach instead, Raymond Berry. The third quarter was coming to a close. The Jets still had the lead, but a feisty young runner had put that New York advantage in real jeopardy. The NFL's soap opera team, the New England Patriots, were about to add even more plot twists to a wild week as the game was heading for a dramatic climax. New York coach Joe Walton had to be talking to himself as the disastrous third quarter finally came to an end. But there was no relief in sight when the final period commenced, as the Patriots, in full command, continued to storm right through the Jets. Fullback Mosi Tatupu picked up big yardage, and then Eason appeared to have his first touchdown pass of the day when he lobbed a toss in the corner of the end zone to Stanley Morgan. Unfortunately for New England, the touchdown was disallowed. One of the referees ruled that Mark Gastineau had Eason in his grasp and had blown the whistle before the throw had been completed. The Jets appeared to be getting their first piece of good news in the second half, as the Pats were denied a touchdown and sent in reverse. In the first quarter, this might have been a New England disaster, but now they were playing with confidence. They ignored this setback and reloaded as Eason threw another touchdown pass, and this time it counted. Wide receiver Stephen Starring hauled in his fourth score of the year, a club high, and America's soap opera team found themselves in the lead for the first time in the ballgame. The key was Tony Eason's ability to step up in the pocket, avoid the rush, and fire the pass quickly to the waiting Stephen Starring. Plenty of time still remained for a Jet comeback, but it simply wasn't going to happen. New England soon regained possession and made sure they kept the ball with a time-consuming drive. The featured performer was Craig James, who had done little before today, but was now the Patriots' headlining star. In 8 previous games, Craig had only 78 rushing yards total. Today, James would gain 79 yards on 10 carries. He did most of the work on this game-clinching drive, then let number 33, Tony Collins, pick up the touchdown on a 4-yard thrust through the Jets' middle. The Patriots were on the verge of doing it again, and the Foxborough fans were in a frenzy. They had come out today as much out of curiosity as for their love of football, to see what the NFL's version of The Young and the Restless had in store for this episode. And the fans were not disappointed. Only a few minutes remained, and if the Jets could be stopped one last time, this soap opera would have a happy ending for New England. Starting quarterback Pat Ryan had returned, and he did hook up with Lamb Jones for one picturesque reception. But that was it for the Jets. Just a few plays later, Ryan was intercepted by veteran linebacker Steve Nelson, number 57, and the game was over. It was a week that had started in turmoil, but now there was only a feeling of triumph. The Patriots have won 6 games, and they earned victories in 5 of those by coming from behind. The first-place Dolphins may be tough to catch, but New England has to feel good about its playoff chances. They're now tied with the Jets for second place in the AFC East, and they've beaten New York twice, an important note to bear in mind when tie-breaking factors come into play later on. But numbers aside, this was an emotional win for New England. The situation was ripe for a team collapse, and yet the Foxborough boys rallied behind their new coach, the quiet but forceful Raymond Berry. As a player, Berry had shown class in becoming one of the NFL's all-time receiving greats. Perhaps these qualities are just what the Patriots need to move them from the status of NFL curio to NFL contender.